Well, a very, very good afternoon to you, and many thanks for joining us on a KTN Newsdesk on this 11th day of July 2016. Always a pleasure to have you tuned in. We have a lot lined up for you from the visit of a very prominent person, that is the Prime Minister for India, Narendra Modi, to the crisis in South Sudan and beyond. But first, let's take a look at the highlights.
Prime Minister, welcome. Great to see you.
President Uhuru Kenyatta holds bilateral talks with visiting Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. IGAD holds crisis talks in Nairobi over renewed clashes in South Sudan. And protests continue in the U.S. over increased attacks against African Americans by the police. Good afternoon. My name is Akisa Wandera. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, India Prime Minister Narendra Modi is currently in the country for a two-day state visit, and currently he is at State House in Nairobi holding bilateral talks with his counterpart, Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta. Let us now join our reporter Murimi Mwangi via phone from State House Nairobi to get more updates on what the meeting is all about between those two premiers. Many thanks for joining us, Murimi. Good afternoon. Kindly give us the highlights of this a very prominent meeting.
Good afternoon, Akisa. A few minutes ago, the Indian Prime Minister, the visiting Indian Premier, as well as President Uhuru Kenyatta, just concluded their address to the nation, of course, unleashing what is the basket of goodies coming from the bilateral talks that were held between the Indian delegation and the Kenyan team earlier today in the morning. And among the key issues or the key highlights of the speeches made by the two leaders is, of course, cooperation on matters of health, with the Indian government promising to facilitate the construction of a cancer hospital. Of course, President Uhuru Kenyatta has said that he's keen to extend the cooperation to the establishment of a pharmaceutical producing company to be set up in Kenya. They did not give a timeline upon which they would be implementing these two crucial health projects. But of course, that marks the highlight of the speeches that were made by the two leaders, Akisa. And of course, the Indian Premier has said that besides matters health, he is keen to see, more cooperation between the two governments on matters of infrastructure and technology, and he in particular cited the geothermal capacity of Kenya and said that his government will be keen to invest in that sector, Akisa.
Now, Murimi, of course, this visit comes barely a week after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the country. And as you've mentioned, there's a promise of cooperation when it comes to health matters and other things. But yesterday in his speech, the Prime Minister for India said that Africa is very vital to India. I don't know what really is in it for them, even as we're looking at the kind of goods that they've come bearing.
Besides trade and business cooperation, Akisa, remember that India and Kenya share quite very tight social ties given the high population of Kenyans of Indian origin that reside in the country. The number is estimated at over 100,000. Just yesterday in that function where the Indian Premier was visiting the Indians in the diaspora, he made it quite clear that Kenyans need to, have a deeper interaction with the Indian government and, of course, as a country. And, for instance, just today, the visiting premier announced that there will be showcasing the cultural, talents and what can be produced by the Indians residing in Kenya. Of course, that is set to happen by the end of the year, where they can showcase the cultural ties that exist between the two countries, as well as other areas that they can cooperate on in matters of social livelihoods between the two nations, as well as very many other areas upon which, on issues of culture, there seems to be a tie between those that reside in Kenya and those that are back home in India, Akisa.
All right, thank you very much, Murimi. We will definitely be joining you later on for more information. Our reporter Murimi Mwange there joining us from State House, Nairobi, where the visiting Indian Prime Minister is currently holding bilateral talks with the President Uhuru Kenyatta, of course, during his two-day state visit in the country. Well, let's stay with the Indian connection. And the Kenyan government reports that in just 1 year, close to 10,000 Kenyans spent 10 billion Kenya shillings seeking treatment in India. But what it is about India that draws so many Kenyans, Grace Jabedo opened up to our reporter Dorcas Wangira about her battle with cancer that started in Nairobi and it took her all the way to Mumbai.
Grace Jabedo has weathered disease, pain and loss of treasured things. But she still stands strong, living proof of what faith, family, goodwill and advanced healthcare can achieve. She's just returned from India after a 4-month stay, but her struggle started back in 2013 when she noticed blood oozing from her nipple. After a test sample was sent to South Africa, doctors discovered that she had duct carcinoma, small cancer cells present. She was treated with tamoxifen, but then things got worse. In 2014, she had massive DVT. It was treated, but the pain continued until doctors noticed that she had 3 lumps. Her intense cancer treatment began in 2015 at the Aga Khan Hospital. The cancer had gotten to stage 3, fast spreading. After 30 radiotherapy sessions and chemotherapy, Grace had the breast removed in July 2015, but still the pain continued. X-rays taken after showed that nothing was wrong. However, there was a consideration to also have her ovaries removed. Grace decided to seek a second opinion, India. She had already spent 3.5 million shillings and she would need to raise more funds. The Get Well Soon Foundation organized her travel plans, reception and medical treatment. At the time, she had no strength and could neither walk nor move. She left with her mother, Phoebe Jabedo, for India in February 2016.
I received as well. The ambulance was there on standby. What amazed me is, unlike Kenya, when you go and you say you are sick, they'll start treating you now, there and then. But with the India, they don't rush. What they'll do all the investigation. You'll be on painkillers only until they finish all the investigation and they have the full report.
After the PET scan, the doctors realized that her cancer was at secondary stage 4, liver cancer and mastitis that had spread to the spine, pelvis, intestines and skull. But they gave her hope and reassurance. The hospitality plus the cycles of chemotherapy and radiotherapy gave her new lease of life.
Even the doctor told me, had I not gone to India, 1 more week, I could have gone. I always cry for the PET scan because with the PET scan, when you go to the scan, it shows every inch of your body. We had a PET scan in Kenya from 2013 when I was diagnosed with cancer. Then I could have saved my breast. And I couldn't have gone a lot of things that I've undergone. Find the doctors in India more professional and are not money-minded.
Dr. Aurora Maranga, a gynecologist, obstetrician and oncologist, notes the gaps in treatment of cancer that sends many Kenyans to India. He has recommended a number of patients there. Unlike other foreign countries, getting a visa to India is easier. Treatment is also more accessible and affordable to many Kenyans. Even with the nuclear laws in place, the production and management of radioactive isotopes in Kenya still needs structures.
The expertise, it's there, but there are few specialists. So many patients and they're booked months down the line, they may opt to have other options. The medical tourism, it's a good thing on one side. We need to do more as a country so that we don't, from an economic point of view, we don't export our jobs.
Grace is much stronger now. She recently suffered a minor stroke. Even after leaving India, her doctor, Rajendra Singh, still maintains contact and consultation regardless of the hour. Some of her colleagues have also sought treatment in India, just as the many Kenyans who go there as a last and even first resort. In 2015, the government recorded as many as 10,000 Kenyans spending over 10 billion Kenya shillings. Grace spent 2.5 million shillings in Mumbai's Fortis Hospital for everything, 1 million shillings less, and treated in 4 months what took more than 2 years back home.
Kwa hospitali, huko iko kitanda ya mgonjwa na iko kitanda ya ule anamwangalia. India ni kusuri. Isipokuwa tulienda wakati jua iko kali, chakula iko, lakini pilipili ndio mbaya. Huko hakuna kitu kama Kiswahili. Kindi ni ngumu.
Phoebe Jebedo has a more pressing and personal message for Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Prime Minister ya India afanye juu chini ili Kenya yetu naye wawe na machines ya PET scan, hakuna Kenya mzima.
Dorcas Wangira, KTN News.
Thank you very much, Dorcas, for that story. There's definitely a connection there between India and Kenya, even as the Prime Minister visits the country. But away from that, IGAD leaders are this afternoon scheduled to hold a crisis meeting following renewed fighting in South Sudan. This comes as the United Nations Security Council has called on warring factions in South Sudan to immediately end the recent fighting and prevent the spread of violence.
Foreign ministers from IGAD member countries will hold a meeting in Nairobi to discuss the interventions needed to stop the violence. The ministers will be joined in the Nairobi meeting by representatives of the Troika group of countries, comprising Norway, the United Kingdom, and the United States, as well as representatives of the international community. A statement by government spokesman Eric Kiraithe says IGAD continues to demand for a total cessation of violence and immediate return to normalcy in South Sudan. Today's meeting was called to take stock of the deteriorating situation and chart the way forward, including ways of holding those responsible for the recent wave of violence to account. Meanwhile, the UN Security Council condemned the fighting in the strongest terms and expressed particular shock and outrage at attacks on UN sites. It also called for additional peacekeepers to be sent to South Sudan. More than 200 people are reported to have died in clashes since Friday. The fighting broke out when troops loyal to President Salva Kiir and first Vice President Riek Machar began shooting at each other in the streets of the South Sudanese capital, Juba. Relations between the two has been acrimonious since independence in 2011. Despite a peace deal last year ending a civil war, each side accuses the other of bad faith.
What happened, none of us knows. We are calling on all the population, all South Sudanese, whether armed or not armed, to respect ceasefire. We are meeting, as we said, to resolve whatever dispute that might have happened these days, and so that we move forward, not to be bogged down in the implementation of the agreement.
Kiir and Machar had met at the presidential palace on Friday and issued a call for calm, which was apparently restored on Saturday. But heavy gunfire broke out again on Sunday near a military barracks occupied by troops loyal to Machar. Ellen Wanjiru, KTN News.
The situation in South Sudan is something we'll definitely be keeping you up to date on, even in our subsequent bulletins. But back home, there's an increase in rebellion against the leadership of the Orange Democratic Movement as more party leaders relinquish their positions, particularly in Western Kenya, even as 6 coastal leaders from the party have announced that they will work very closely with Jubilee. So what really is happening in ODM? We speak to our reporter in Kakamega, Robert Wanyonyi, to give us some insights on what really is going on the ground. Good afternoon, Robert. Many thanks for joining us on KTN Newsdesk. Of course, we saw the resignation of Secretary General Babu Namwamba, of course, resigning from the post as Secretary General of ODM. Most recently, we saw Sirisia, Member of Parliament, also relinquish his post. That is Moses Waluke. What really is happening? And even as they desert their parties, so to speak, is this the voice on the ground from the people?
Thank you very much, Akisa. Good afternoon. In fact, that is what is happening in the western part of Kenya, a region that was a few days back leaning towards ODM, but now you can say that the recent happenings has thrust the party into the limelight, whereby there's some rebellion that is simmering, and with more rebellion expected to rise again against the party leadership. With Namwamba, after Namwamba's resignation together with Paul Otuoma of Funyula, yesterday we had the Sirisia MP, Major John Waluke Koi, also resigning his 3 positions within the party. And the 3 MPs are all giving the same reason, that there have been a lot of frustrations within the Orange Party, and they say that attempts by them to address the issues have always been met with a lot of resistance from the leadership. And now they feel that this is the right moment for them to state their statement and maybe move out, relinquish their positions. But the surprising thing is that they are all saying they will remain in the party. Now it leaves a lot to be decided, especially as to the next political destination is expected, Akisa.
Now, Robert, you're on the ground. Definitely, you have spoken to a number of people on the ground. Is this necessarily the voice of the people on the ground?
According to the people that we have spoken to, Akisa, is that they are still divided because these are the moves that came in so unexpectedly. Many people are not expecting that some political bigwigs or those who are leaning towards the Orange Party, like Babu Namwamba, Paul Otuoma, and yesterday Waluke, would leave the party in such an immediate arrangement. But now, most of the people feel that maybe the MPs could have prepared them with enough reasons as to why they are leaving the party and as to their next destination, because they feel that maybe there is an outside hand. According to the ODM officials who have been interviewed, they say there is an outside hand in all this that these people are doing. But majority of the ODM supporters feel that the party might still get its time now that the next election is still around the corner. They might still get their act together and maybe put things in order. But according to the others that we have interviewed, especially those who have listened keenly to the political leaders who have resigned, they say that this was the right move, and they feel that it is the right time for the western part of Kenya, the Luhya nation in particular, to have one political outfit that we are yet to know maybe the outfit that they are talking about, Akisa.
Well, opposition leader Raila Odinga is headed there. Do we expect that he will calm the storm?
Yeah, Raila is expected here in Western beginning next Monday, 18th July. And among the issues he's expected to handle, right from Vihiga County to Busia to Kakamega County, issues to do with the rebellion within the party, and maybe try to meet some officials whereby he's expected to maybe announce a new leadership structure within the party. And many members feel that the coming of their leader is something that might just calm the waters a bit. But other political analysts still feel that by coming to address this matter, it seems that there is more that is happening within the Orange Party. Now that you have talked about the coastal region, there is also rebellion within the party from Garissa. And then they are just saying that this is made a simmering row between various factions within the party countrywide, but it's not only pegged on Western, Akisa.
All right. Thank you very much, Robert, for that update. Our reporter, Western Regional reporter, Robert Wenyonyi, joining us from Kakamega County, talking about the politics of Luyaland. Now, let's now cross over to our neighbors, Uganda. The woes of Ugandan opposition leader Kizza Besigye appear to be far from over. Besigye is seeking bail in order to be released from jail since he was arrested on May the 11th and later charged with treason. This followed the release of a video on social media in which he allegedly took oath as the president of the people ahead of President Yoweri Museveni's swearing in. Besigye lost to President Museveni in the elections held on February the 18th, but he disputed the results, claiming he had actually won but was rigged out. Let's now talk to our Ugandan reporter, Solomon Serwanja, now joining us from Kampala. Good afternoon, Solomon. Many thanks for joining us. Of course, court proceedings were there in the morning. Give us the highlights on what really happened in the court.
Well, it's not a very good afternoon for Forum for Democratic Change supporters, Akisa, as of course just the High Court Judge Musene Masalo adjourned the final verdict as to whether Dr. Kizza Besigye should be granted bail or not to tomorrow, that is the 12th of July 2016, to decide whether Dr. Kizza Besigye should be out of prison as he continues to battle with the treason case. Of course, today the lawyers of Dr. Kizza Besigye, who of course was led by Ernest Kalibala, did present the bail application requirements, saying that Dr. Kizza Besigye is 60 years old and therefore he cannot continue to be in prison, but also that he has been in prison since May 2016. Most importantly, Dr. Kizza Besigye's legal team did say that he will be able to appear before court anytime he is asked to go before court. Also, sureties were presented in court today, including Forum for Democratic Change President, that is Mugisha Muntu, alongside other senior party heads, including Nandala Mathabi and Joyce Sebugwawa, among others. So, Akisa, if you can tell me, if you can ask me, your guess is as good as mine whether Dr. Kizza Besigye will be out of prison tomorrow. We can only wait for the ruling of the judge Musene, who will be giving that verdict tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Right. Emma will be with you for an update on whether he will be released or the stay in the cells would be longer. Solomon Serwanja there joining us from Kampala in Uganda. Right, at this point, let's take a short break. Do not go too far. We still have a lot lined up for you on KTN Newsdesk and, of course, some sports news for you. Do stay with us.